Welcome back, everybody. CT here, back with my 2014 SEC football preview, and it's time to talk about the Missouri Tigers. Gary Pinkel and Missouri going into their third year in the SEC, and it's been an interesting ride so far. And 2012 was a really rough welcome to the SEC, and last year was quite the opposite as they won the SEC East and lost in the SEC Championship to Auburn in a game that they had their chances and they possibly could have went to the national championship instead of Auburn and got their shot at Florida State. But they didn't, and they finished 12-2 overall, and they get a win over Oklahoma State in the Cotton Bowl, which is an excellent year for Missouri. But let me say this, they took advantage of a down year in the SEC East, and nothing against them. They were an excellent team, but they took advantage of a really banged up Georgia team, really banged up Florida team, and that's unusual for both of those teams to have a down year in the same year. And South Carolina, who they lost to Tennessee, which that's really, if they hadn't lost to Tennessee, then South Carolina would have been the winners of the SEC East instead of Missouri. But nonetheless, they were an excellent team. Nobody could have predicted that Missouri would have won the East. And overall, an excellent year and a bounce back year after 2012. And going into 2014, they have 8 returning starters on offense, 4 on defense, and they lost a lot of firepower, and including Dorial Green-Beckham, who got kicked off the team and looks like he's going to be playing this year for Oklahoma. And that's an absolutely huge loss. It would have been maybe the best receiver in the country if, well, he still will be probably for Oklahoma, but man, anytime you lose a player of that caliber, absolutely huge blow. But hope the best for Dorial Green-Beckham, as he was an absolute beast for Missouri last year. And they also lose LaDamian Washington, who was the opposing, I believe, 6'4" receiver. They had 2 absolute towers on the outside last year for James Franklin to throw the ball to. Losing those 2 guys is going to be almost impossible to replace, but we'll see what happens. They also lose Henry Josie, who was a very good little scat back they had, really fast running back, and I believe he tore his ACL in, was it 2011, came back and had an excellent year in 2013 and was a big part of the success Missouri had on offense in 2013. They also lose Coney Ely and Michael Sam, both just 2 very good defensive ends for that Missouri defense last year. And let me point out something about Michael Sam, not necessarily about Michael Sam, but about the team in general. Absolutely phenomenal story and a phenomenal job that Missouri team the entire program was able to keep the fact that Michael Sam is gay on the down low throughout the entire year. Never leaked to the public. Excellent trust and character shown by Gary Pinkel and his guys. Absolutely phenomenal. I don't know how many places that would happen at, but I tip my cap to Missouri for that. They lose James Franklin, who started, I think, 3 years for Missouri, and he was banged up with injuries off and on throughout his career, but overall he had a solid career, and I think that Matty Mock may be a little bit better than him, which I'll talk about in a second, but uh, he was a dual threat, and he really did a good job of putting the putting the ball in up in the air and for in a good spot for Doyle Green-Beckham and Damian Washington to go up and get it. And he was a good playmaker, and uh, I guess you could say that Missouri will miss him as far as that goes. But now to get to the key returnees for Missouri. Matty Mock takes over. The job is 100% his now with James Franklin gone, and he came in and played well over the past couple of years when James Franklin was hurt or when Gary Pinkel just benched James Franklin because he wasn't playing well, which he did, which did happen from time to time. And every time that happened, Matty Mock answered the call and played really well in the Florida game, the Kentucky game, really well in the Cotton Bowl against Oklahoma State. I thought they should have. I think they probably wish they had Matty Mock in towards the end of the SEC championship game when the last couple drives where Missouri was in desperate need of a touchdown. Their defense was getting absolutely destroyed by Auburn's running game, and James Franklin just couldn't make a play when they needed it most. And who knows? Maybe Matty Mock could have. And but he's a really solid quarterback. I don't. That's the one part of this Missouri team that I'm not worried about is Matty Mock. I think he's an upgrade from James Franklin. He can run with the ball too, like James Franklin did. Maybe actually uh, a better runner than James Franklin was. I remember he gashed Oklahoma State a couple times. I remember I had a couple big runs against Tennessee throughout the year. He had some big runs. I don't think people respected the fact that he could do that, and he made him pay. Um, they returned Bud Sasser, a receiver. I guess you could say he will be their best receiver returning. Well, that's a major concern because after losing Dorial Green-Beckham and Damian Washington, they're going to need some playmakers on the outside. Hopefully Bud Sasser can do that for him, but we'll see. And that's really the question mark for Missouri this year is do they have depth and do they have talent like the other SEC powerhouses do? When LSU and Georgia and these other teams lose players to the NFL, they usually can plug them in because of how well they've recruited. And Missouri's recruited pretty well in the grand scheme of things, but they're still in the bottom half when it comes to recruiting in the SEC. But we'll see. They've always been a good offense, even back to the Big 12 days. So you'd have to imagine they have some receivers that'll be able to make plays, but I don't see them having another Dorial Green-Beckham on that roster right now. They return Russell Hansbrough, who will probably be I guess the replacement for Henry Josie in the backfield, and I think it's going to be key for them to get the running game going without having those big receivers. They're going to have to run the ball, and Russell Hansbrough played well at times last year. I saw him have a few big runs when I was watching their highlights from 2013, and yeah, he should be decent. I'm really concerned about Missouri's defense in general. They played well at times last year, and they were really an underrated defense. You couldn't tell that by watching their last two games, but in all fairness, they did play two pretty damn good offenses in their last two games, especially in the SEC championship. And losing Coney Ealy and Michael Sam, two very crucial defense. They have the same problem that South Carolina has with losing Jadeveon Clowney and Chaz Sutton. Uh, it's tough to lose one stud on the defensive line at the defensive end position, but replacing two just makes it twice as tough. And I'm worried about Missouri's defense, and they're returning most of their. Actually, no, they're not. They're only returning four starters on defense, so they're pretty much having to replace everybody on defense. It's gonna be it's gonna be a difficult task for Missouri. I see their defense really struggling coming this year. Really, the only shining star and the only good thing you could say about Missouri as far as players returning is Matty Mock. But we'll see. I think they'll be all right on offense, actually. I'm not worried about Matty Mock at all. I'm more worried about the defensive side of the ball. And, Missouri's not well known for their defense, but they've had some really good players on the defensive line. Sheldon Richardson a couple years ago, D tackle out of Missouri. They've had some good players on the defensive line. Hopefully they have some more that just we don't know about yet. But yeah, a lot of big shoes to fill on the defensive side of the ball and at the wide receiver position. Let's get into the 2014 schedule for Mizzou. They open up with the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, and what a very easy game to start out with Missouri. Should end up getting an easy win, get some momentum going here, build some confidence. And then what an interesting game. They go to Toledo in the Glass Bowl. It's supposed to be a very tough place to play when you considered being a non-power Power Six conference team. From what I've heard, the Glass Bowl is a very tough place to play. Tricky game for Toledo. I honestly have to say I know nothing about Toledo coming into this year, but they have been a solid team over the past couple of years. I know they've been to bowl games and won bowl games and been one of the better teams in the MAC. But you got to go with Missouri here. I don't know enough about Toledo to give Toledo the win there. Then they host UCF at home, and they played UCF 2 years ago at UCF and had a pretty good game against them, and Missouri won. But UCF losing Broyles, or losing. I think they lost their what's his name, Storm, whatever that running back's name is. What an awesome name that is, by the way. And I think UCF is not going to be the same team this year as they were last year. Hopefully, for Missouri's sake, they're not. And I see, yeah, UCF will probably take a couple steps back this coming year after winning a Fiesta Bowl and only losing one game to South Carolina last year. But that's a scary game again. A very dangerous game. UCF has been a very quality team for the past several years. But at home, I think Missouri feels safe there, and they should get a win. But then they play Indiana at home. They're really testing themselves. There's no cupcakes on the schedule except for the Jackrabbits, South Dakota State in the first game. Man, this is probably the toughest out of conference schedule that I've seen. Definitely so far in these previews, these SEC teams. Wow. Uh, not very smart scheduling for Missouri. I guess they felt really confident they'd have a really good team at this point. Playing the SEC, you don't need to have this many difficult games out of conference. Uh, but yeah, they hammered Indiana on the road last year. I'm not really sure what Indiana's looking like this year. I know they lost their best receiver, who was probably their best player, and you got to take Missouri at home here. Indiana's not been good for a long time, and yeah, shouldn't have too much trouble with Indiana at home. Then they host. No, they go to Columbia to take on South Carolina Gamecocks, which is their true, really tough game. First tough game of the season, and I think they will just have their hands full there. And they South Carolina beat Missouri in overtime last year. Remember the game tying field goal in overtime hit off the uprights, and that's how that one ended. The only game Missouri lost in the regular season. And yeah, I see South Carolina winning this game pretty comfortably. Then they have a bye week before they come home and play Georgia, which will be an extremely tough game. They went, they won in Athens last year, beat up on absolutely uh, team that was decimated by injuries, and I think that was still a pretty tough game for Missouri, even though Aaron Murray was literally the only starter playing in that game. It seemed like, but I like Georgia in this game. Just an absolutely vicious running back without Coney Ely and Michael Sam on that defense. Really a tough challenge it's going to be for Missouri, and they may be able to put up some points against Georgia and make it interesting, but ultimately I definitely like Georgia in that one. Then they go to the Swamp to take on Florida, which is another team that they ended up beating pretty easily last year at Missouri. But Florida is going to be a much improved team as long as they stay healthy. And last time they played in the Swamp, Missouri made it real interesting. It was a low-scoring game that Florida pulled out in the end. But I think this will be another really close game. Probably a low-scoring game, unless Florida can make some drastic improvements on offense over uh, more than they've had since Will Muschamp has been there. But yeah, I think Florida will squeak one out at home. Then they got Vanderbilt uh, at home, and this one's really a toss-up for me. Vanderbilt's lost James Franklin, lost Jordan Matthews, really don't have much coming back. I'm going to go Missouri in this one, and I think I picked Vanderbilt to lose every single game in these previews. I guess I'm go ahead and predicting a tough year for Vanderbilt. And yeah, I see Missouri will win this one by at least 10 points. That's my prediction for this one. And then they stay home for Mark Stoops. Kentucky Wildcats come into town, and this is going to be an absolute battle. I can see it coming. Uh, Kentucky will be improved from last year, and Missouri, I believe, beat Kentucky pretty badly uh, at Kentucky last year. This will be a battle and a tricky game for Missouri, but I'm going to say Missouri squeaks it out at the very end. And then they have a bye week before they go to Texas A&M. And man, haven't given this one much thought. This will be this one is absolutely a toss-up, even more so than the last one. I'm gonna give Texas A&M the win here, just because it's in College Station. Both teams facing very similar challenges this year, and both losing their quarterbacks, both losing big stud receivers and Mike Evans and Dorial Green-Beckham. Both teams probably won't have very good defenses. Uh, Missouri will probably have the better quarterback, but I'm gonna say Texas A&M finds a way to win this one here just solely because they're at home. That's really the only reason that I'm picking that one. Then Missouri goes to Tennessee, take on the Vols, in which they absolutely destroyed Tennessee uh, at Missouri last year. And Butch Jones, I think, is another couple years away from really turning that program around. And I found something interesting out the other day. Tennessee is not returning a single starter back on the offensive or defensive line. So think about that. Having to replace both your offensive and defensive lines. That's incredible if you think about it. I wonder if that's ever happened before. That's an incredible fact to me. And I'm going to pick Tennessee to somehow pull this one out. They are returning that stud they have at middle linebacker, who I'm really surprised came back this year. And yeah, that'll be another great game. They're gonna have a. This is one, two, three. This is about 3 or 4 games in a row. I think will be really, really close games. They're all really toss-ups. Got to pick it one way or the other. I'm gonna pick Tennessee at home in Neyland. Uh, Butch Jones getting another SEC win, which he probably will be desperately needing at that point. Then they finish up the year with another toss-up game, basically, against the Arkansas Razorbacks, and this is at home. I believe I picked uh, Arkansas to win this one, and so I'm obviously going to pick Arkansas to win this one again. And this is on a Friday. I guess it's the Friday after Thanksgiving, so it'll probably be the only game on at that time. So spotlight on Missouri and Arkansas here. Yeah, I think Arkansas will be able to run the ball on Missouri with all the players that they've lost. Basically, uh, putting in an entirely new defense that which Missouri is, and I see the Hogs having some success on the ground this year in general. So I definitely see them having success on the ground against what I think is going to be a struggling Missouri defense. So Arkansas gets the win there. Let's count up their win total here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 wins. So they go to a bowl game, even though it probably seemed like a rough year. Considering all they lost, though, that's really not that bad. Uh, Losing as much as any team that I've seen. But Matty Mock will be enough, I think, to get them to 6 wins, get them to a bowl game, and I see them probably they'll probably be what, Liberty Bowl, something like that. It'll probably be a team in which they can beat, and they'll get 7 wins. So 6 or 7 wins from Missouri, I consider to be a decent year, and which is a rebuilding year for Gary Pinkel and the Missouri Tigers. So if you're a Missouri fan, you can't be that disappointed in that, considering the year you had last year and all that you've lost, and possibly Missouri should be back in stronger form in 2015. But that does it for the 2014 Missouri Tigers preview. As always, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.